Uh, First item on our agenda is the minutes from our last meeting. Do we have any discussion? Are there any issues with that? That work by Kathy? It's, to me, it looks as good as all of them, Kathy. In that case, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. All right, we've been talking about a mechanism for reviewing the infrastructure needs. And Larry did a lot of work, Morris did a lot of work, Jeff did work, a lot of work, Tom did a lot of work, and compiled a process. Does everybody agree with what was said, what was put into that process?
Well, Gary, this is Larry. There were certainly some incorporations. There's a spreadsheet out there that's got all of the comments everybody made. Some of them slightly paraphrased just to try to keep it from being a 22-page document. Whether or not the comments were incorporated, whether or not it seemed appropriate to incorporate, there were several things on there that were kind of in the discuss category. So I don't know if I can share my screen or not. I'm going to try it. How about that? Oh, nope, you've disabled screen sharing, so that won't work. What I was going to do is put up the spreadsheet and just kind of talk down through the items and see if there's any items that we really want to talk about or adjust. But I am open to alternate paths.
Let me see if I can make you the host.
I don't even think you have to make me the host. I just think you have to enable.
I want to go say, look, I do.
It says you didn't allow screen sharing. So if you allow screen sharing, I think I can share my screen.
Well, how do I go back and change that setting then?
That's maybe a bridge too far for me, Karina. I don't know this well.
Let's see.
I have a share screen option at the bottom of my screen. I don't know if you have something similar. You may have an option under there.
I do, and it's green, and it's selected saying one participant can share at a time.
Okay.
So it doesn't show me that it's disabled.
Okay.
Let's see.
This may or may not work. So, okay. Well, I tell you what, how about I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet and I'll go through it. How about that? And then we can kind of hopefully stones off the pond rather than try to solve the IT issue here.
Try it now. I've changed something.
Okay. Hang on just a second. That looks like that worked.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you. Excellent. Can you see a whole bunch of umbrellas on the screen in my window?
Yes.
Very pretty color.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice and bright. Okay. So here is the spreadsheet. So the ones that are noted here in green in the action column were either items that were accepted and put into the Word file. And if you didn't think I did it right, by all means, let me know. Or some of them say none because I don't think that necessarily means we change anything in the process document, but it's a acknowledgement of the commentary, if you will. The first couple items related to the purpose of the assessment and how the board was going to use that information. I think our best path there, unless anybody has an objection, is Jeff made a suggestion yesterday regarding writing up a little bit of a summary on our side of the of what we believe the tasking to be and what we believe the deliverable to look like, and sync that back with Dick and the board. That seems to be a pretty effective way to address that problem, at least from my viewpoint. I don't know if anybody had any other thoughts on it or not, though.
Well, Larry, since I brought that up, and I guess I would comment on it, is that I think with just a little bit of dialogue with Dick, we can understand exactly what the board is looking for. And then with a little bit of understanding from the or the committee members that have been around longer than you and I, Larry, we can probably craft out something that would articulate clearly what our task is, what our deliverable is, or our timeline is. I think the things that Morris and those members have pointed out. Over.
Copy that. Excuse me. Okay, so I think I'll just jump in here and see if I'm completely out to lunch. I think what we're really being asked to do, and it's one of the entries that's actually in the charter, and that's to review the expenditure recommendations that are going to be coming from the staff. Right now, it's labeled as a 3-year plan. I think it's actually going to be a longer range plan than that, regardless of time span. Essentially review that with the staff and determine whether or not we concur with their position, provide some feedback to the staff if for anything that we see that maybe it's a case where we either don't understand or perhaps give them an alternative to think about. I think that's kind of the purpose of our assignment. I think that's item 1. I think item 2, how's the board going to use this information? Will it be used as a justification? I was perhaps a little bit flip when I said, what's done with the data is above our pay grade, but there's a certain amount of truth to that. I believe that we as the Finance and Planning Committee have to be honest brokers of data. The data will take us to whatever conclusions and recommendations we make. It's the board that has the responsibility to take that data and utilize that data, establish whatever budgetary cut lines they believe are appropriate and proper, and provide that data wherever they think it necessary, be that to themselves, be that to the community, be that to the newly formed task force, whatever they wish to do with that data. As long as we're honest brokers of the data, then that data should be available for the consumption of any and all folks who want to use it. Dick, do you think I'm out to lunch there?
Well, I tried to send a note to you guys last night. And basically what I'm trying to say, now I'm, in West Memphis, Arkansas right now on a car deal, but what I think you guys are getting too formal. For example, there's tasks that need to be done. One of them is, what do other HOA, POAs charge for assessment fees? Because somebody needs to do that, put it out there. I don't think the board cares whether you do it or whether the new task force does it, just so it gets done. Somebody's got to make an argument against or for an ad valorem method of charging assessment fees. I would say against, but again, I'm not going to do that work. Either you or the other committee's going to do it. And Jeff, I think it could be just as simple as somebody saying, okay, we'll do it or they'll do it. But here's who's going to do it. Here's who is going to carry that water. Transfer fees. Somebody needs to address transfer fees. I don't care whether the new task force does it or your committee does it, but somebody needs to do that and put forth an argument for or against transfer. And all other forms, I tried to say in my note last night, of financing infrastructure needs. You know, it can't just be an assessment increase. So the thing that thrilled me is you've got people on both committees or task force, whatever you want to call it, and they could make those decisions. You don't have to go back to the board with it. Just get it done. Is that clear? And again, I'm one board member speaking, but I shared my thoughts last night with everybody else. Never heard a word back. So.
Well, Dick, to date, all that's been discussed with us is that the staff was preparing an infrastructure needs
No,
report.
I know that.
And
But
we definitely can do a lot of things, but nobody has mentioned an equity sharing scheme to us, nor have I heard anybody on the street talk about an ad valorem tax.
Jeff, listen to me. There's tasks to be done. Figure out the easiest way to get them done. Figure out who is has the most. If we spelled out, you know, all of this stuff in a charter or whatever. And by the way, I've got a charter waiting for me when I get home that I will share with you, a red line version. But anyway, I don't think we need to be so formal with all this. Just say, okay, here's a task, who's going to tackle it? Here's a task, who's going to tackle it? Because you have to have all your I's dotted and T's crossed when you go out with this vote. Believe me, I lived through this with the future funding thing. So all those arguments will come up. We've got a board member who will campaign on doing an ad valorem situation. So those things have to be addressed, they have to be mentioned, they have to be clearly argued up front and presented to the voters. Am I clear?
Dick, Morris Poston here.
Yeah.
I saw your memo last night. I think you're right. There's a lot of semantics here, but you keep sort of changing the goalpost. I think we'll do whatever you want to do. I mean, we're all here, volunteers want to do it. But I heard exactly what Gary said. When we started on this, you wanted to see the infrastructure needs. That was the way it was quoted.
That was job one. But wait, that's job one. That's job one. You need to do that first. But along with doing that, before you go out for a vote, you need to do all these other things. You need to show every method possible of financing this in addition to raising the assessment. And part of it is Karina's presentation the other day on where they're saving money. I mean, you have to show the voters you're saving money. You have to show the voters you're responsible in running the business. Then you have to present the arguments against all these other forms of financing before you can get their vote. And all I'm saying is, somebody please step up and do it.
Well, that's exactly where we were headed until somebody decided another committee was going to do that marketing part.
Well, it doesn't matter what committee does it.
Well, I agree.
It really doesn't. But what I'm saying, you got guys, you got what, 3 or 4 members of your future funding committee, finance and planning committee, that are on that task force. So you ought to be able to say, okay, you guys do it, we're going to do something else, or we'll do it, you just stay on the infrastructure. I don't care. I don't think the board cares.
Back to the table. The financial plan review process. All right, does anybody disagree with the written version, what Larry produced?
Well, so let me jump ahead just a little bit there for folks who might not have had a chance to really read it. The initial version of the proposal I put out had both an assessment of expenses, the incoming documentation that's going to be coming from the staff, and an assessment of revenue paths. The pushback I got from some of the folks on this committee, and I think it's fair pushback, by the way, is that that's a lot of work, and raised a very legitimate question about whether or not whether we have sufficient bandwidth, whether we have sufficient time to be able to do both of those at once. I took, in version 2 of that process, I took all of the revenue generation related questions and I took them out of our question set. My thinking behind that was, let's let finance and planning do that expenditure review that's already coming at us, that's already in our charter. Let us do that look. And then we take that data, at least I would hope we take that data, provide it to the task force and the board. We provide it to the board can give it to whoever they want to, including the task force. And any of that revenue generation work can be an activity that the task force can pick up as part of their tasking. Wasn't explicitly stated that way, but that was kind of the method to the madness of the adjustments I made.
Okay. So first step is to review the product from the staff. We will then discuss their answers. And by the way, I definitely agree, as I said earlier, that writing to some of the physical sites could be important to our research. So we'll have to figure out how to do that. But I'm still anxious to see the report. I don't see any reason why we can't proceed with these questions. For the interview process. Do we have any more input, pro or con?
I mean,
Larry, I
just for the
think,
record, I'm comfortable with what Larry wrote, and from where I sit, we can go forward with it.
All right. I believe we've all decided or pretty well figured out we're going to have to start with a Zoom interview with the people who are putting the report together. Last word I heard was February. Karina, do you know if that's February 1st or 5th or?
Given the circumstances, I don't know if there's any leeway in the deadline. I did reach out and ask for a progress report from all those that were involved. As far as I know, they are still planning to have it done by February 1st, but I know we're still trying to get some of those areas completed.
All
So
right.
deadline, some of them are already done. If it ends up being the case that some of, or maybe kind of trailing in just due to the circumstances kind of going on, we could probably set up meetings with the ones that are already complete so it doesn't halt our progress. So I've asked them to let me know who's complete in order to set up meetings after the 1st. So I will relay that information as soon as I get it.
Okay, that'd be great.
I think that's a good idea, Karina. Thank you. It's a great suggestion.
And Karina, do you have any initial dates identified yet?
I haven't yet. I know there's 2 or 3 departments that are complete. So I've asked them to reach back with me, like this was last night. So I will try to get that secured right away.
Karina, that report will have revenue and expense in it.
It's gonna have all your expense and stuff. The revenue side, I'm gonna need a little bit longer to be able to get that in there, which I think would be okay as long as you guys are willing to work on the expense side and in segments, and while I'm trying to get all that revenue put in there as well. And then your final complete could have it all.
For the F&P committee's edification on why I want revenue in there, you're going to have to show again the property owners where this assessment fits in. And you're going to have to fit it into a plan that shows revenue, expense, capital expenditures, so forth. And the original format that Charles wanted to do did not have revenue in it. And I think he felt that it was a group of numbers we were going to hold him to, but it isn't. You know, a long range plan is a guide, and we need that guide to show the voters where we're going to fit in the assessment increase and so forth. So that's why I've had this discussion with Karina. Fair, Karina?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I will say kind of what we discussed, as far as the revenue projections and going out that far, in order to kind of get the best analysis, I'm going to look at history and see what our trending has been, and then also get with the directors and stuff to see if there's anything new that they are planning to try to implement that could affect it. But overall, you're going to be kind of looking at a trend. And I will progress it out that way.
Right. And again, you know, it's not, we're going to write this number on your back and you got to bring it in, or, you know, it is a projection, and no more than especially in the outfit. You're projecting, you're not planning.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll probably end up using stuff, but it's going to give you the picture. I mean, I understand what you're trying to get to. You want to see the whole kit and caboodle. You need to see what's coming in, what's going out, what's
The
left,
voters will.
what didn't
The voters
get.
will. Property owners want to see that.
Right.
So Karina, will you in that show or be able to help the Finance and Planning Committee understand the difference or the detriment, the shortfall, however we want to categorize it, between what the plan is and what the anticipated funding is for those particular areas?
I think once we're able to see it in full form, it'll help bring light to some of the areas. To try to kind of sum it up, we have enough to pay our bills. We have enough to put some back into our infrastructure and our capital. But do we really have enough left at the end of the day to do everything that we need to be able to sustain, much less move forward? And I think that's where you will see you have a difference. And the revenue doesn't quite cover it at this point, especially with the fact that the utilities is supposed to be set up separately. So they're 100% set aside. And the way that it's been operating for so long is all that money is kind of jumbled up. And if we can break it out and demonstrate that, you're really going to end up seeing our utilities is making money and they're able to survive. But the rest of the POA is relying on their cash flow and their funds to be able to kind of do what we need to do. And splitting it apart is going to give you a better picture of what our needs are for the rest of the organization. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it'll help prioritize where we're headed to.
Right. But like as Dick said, I mean, he talked to me last week about getting the revenue in there. So that part is going to take a little bit longer. But like I said, if we can get the expense side over and the capital side over, that at least lets us keep the ball rolling.
Larry, did I skip over a point? Do we need to do, you have a lot of the, well, not, yeah, the spreadsheet. These items that say that are marked discuss. Do we need to spend some more time on that?
Well, let's try not to auger in too much, Gary, but let me kind of skip through some of those. I think we talked about 1 and 2. I don't think there's any disagreement on category 4 that we need to be honest brokers of data.
Yeah.
Number 5, I don't know exactly what we're going to get. I have a mental model of what we're probably going to see from the staff based on what we've seen before. I think it's a very workable approach. I would hope that our feedback to the board would take a very similar path to what the staff is presenting, just to make it easier for people to consume. And what I'm really hoping is that when we get done with this assessment, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but when we get done with this assessment, it would really be nice if we, as the Finance and Planning Committee, would be able to say, yeah, we reviewed the board's material. We believe the numbers they presented us. We understand, we believe the priorities they presented us, and we're willing to stand right next to them when they review it with the board and help the staff fight for budget if we feel like that's something that budget really needs to be expended on. Maybe I'm being a little Pollyannish about that, but I certainly hope we could get there. So I mean, we'll see what we see when we get there. Skipping down a little bit further, I love Morris's idea of putting together kind of like 3 categories of investment. I believe for communication to the broader population, the simpler we keep this, the better it's going to be, because most people aren't going to have either the time or the technical expertise to go wandering down into the mud. But from our standpoint, when we do these reviews, we need to do our appropriate due diligence, which is my comment related to row 11, comment 10. But I also think that the 80-20 rule is going to apply here. I mean, we're going to spend 80% of our time on, my guess would be less than 10 large dollar items that we'll really have to grind on. Most of the rest of this stuff, if I got a $5,000 more that's 10 years old and I need to buy a new $5,000 more, I don't expect that to be a 30-minute conversation. I expect that to be about a 3-minute dialogue. Then we move to the next topic. Again, maybe that's just me. Going down a little further, comments 15, 16. That's the conversation about the charter and what we need and degree of formality. I don't think we're going to solve that here today. I don't know that I think that horse may be dead. So I don't know how many more rounds we want to put into it. Going down to comment 19, Tom made a very good point about, expected life and assuming it was a depreciation period. Actually, I thought of it that way. What I was thinking of was real life. But what Tom brings a good point out. There are tax laws that require what the depreciation schedule has to be on a piece of equipment. That piece of equipment may last well beyond that life. So we may have an asset that's got zero cost and zero fully depreciated on the books, but it's still a perfectly useful asset. I was really looking at it from the standpoint of when do I actually have to replace it versus where the depreciation period is. But I edited the questions to ask both questions to see if there's any significant differences there. The other point Tom raised was lease versus buy. you know, there's pluses and minuses to both. My mental model on it is, do you lease a car or buy a car? And the real question is, how long are you going to hold the asset? How long is the asset hold value? You know, that kind of thing. Don't know that there's a firm data point there, but the hope would be that anything that's a leased asset, there'd be reasonable rationale for why it's leased versus a purchase asset. I'm sure the people that have made the staff's already gone through that exercise. They should be ready with that answer. Let's see, 23, Tom had a question about fleet management backstory. How do I identify similar issues? He was talking about the backhoe situation. I would hope that during the Q&A period with the staff, we may or may not uncover similar circumstances like that. If we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. But I would hope that during that dialogue, we'll be able to get a feel if there's anything else out there that's maybe an asset allocation, opportunity for better asset allocation, better asset planning. Don't know till we get there. Your comment, Ty, had a comment about, do we keep in mind water, sewer separately funded? Does it impact the analysis? I don't think it should impact the analysis. I appreciate Karina's observation that basically the utility systems are not only paying for themselves, but they're funding other things right now. That's good to know. Because I took the revenue questions out, maybe that's no longer an appropriate item to discuss here. That'll be it. Let the task force deal with that. And then line 28 is the last one. Capital costs need to account for full cost. I believed at the last board meeting, Karina, and if I mischaracterized you, please correct me. But I thought heard you tell the board at the last meeting that the staff setting up cost lines for some of the capital projects going forward. So if there are multiple groups or multiple departments that have to participate in a capital activity, it sounds like we'll have some way it sounds like the staff will have a way to get a full cost accountability for that. Might not necessarily fully be there today. Get that recent change.
Oh, there's so many.
Oops, somebody else on. So the hope would be that going forward, maybe that's a way to get a real good sight picture of full capital cost on doing something, and that way we make sure that we're budgeting appropriately, that the expenditures are appropriate. But I don't think it affects our immediate questions, but it's certainly a good. I think that's a good positive step in that direction, Karina. If I mischaracterized you, please correct me.
No, you're correct. Currently, the capital process has been quite cumbersome, and so we're taking some steps to streamline, but yet provide much more detailed information based on each thing that was in the budget is having its own account, tracking the cost that way. If it is a culverts, for example, while that may be capitalized as one, they're going to be assigned job numbers. So we'll be able to say how many culverts, what each one was costing, and so forth. So a lot more detail to be tracked.
Well, and that's good. And the other thing, and a culvert repair is a good example. You might actually have 2 or 3 departments that have to work together on a culvert repair. You may have the police department may have to put up barricades, and like what we had with the situation here at the Diamante Lake a while back, where there was a very significant investment that had to be made in traffic control and all of that sort of thing that might not necessarily be directly tied to the act of taking a backhoe.
It's right here. What?
Well, now our payroll is we're not set up to do job costing within payroll. So that is the only exclusion that you will kind of have. But any actual expense that's outside of that will be captured.
Okay, understood. And like I said, we'll get what we get. We recognize you've got to make this. You've been running the show for a while. And then the other part of it is that you got what you got. You're perhaps limited by the flexibility of your payroll system. And at some point, I know I've gone through this in other scenarios where you'd like to have the cost accountability down to a very low level, but it becomes a rather tedious exercise to do that. And at some point you have to kind of cut it off and go, okay, if I go any lower than this, I'm spending more money to track it than I am to actually expend it. And then it's just not worth the trouble anymore.
Right. But we are doing a lot of allocations in our other service departments in order to actually be able to capture what a department is costing us. Like I said, the only caveat that we're facing is the payroll side of it though.
Sure. Okay, that's good to know. So thank you. So Gary, that was the last of the discussed comments that I had, unless anybody has anything that you think I missed or any other commentary that this conversation has led you to, then I turn it back to you, Gary, for next steps.
All right, then, if no one has any other ideas or input, then it's ready to publish, as they say, right?
That sounds like you're asking for a motion to accept.
Yes, is that your motion?
Well, since I wrote it, I don't think I have a choice, do I? Motion to accept.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What was
So
that?
Gary, if you would send this to me or whoever, Larry, once it's all completed, I would like to be able to pass this out to our supervisors. Just kind of as a heads up, hey, here's some of this stuff. Make sure you know what's coming and so forth. Which, like I said before, this is all stuff that they should be asking themselves as they're filling this out and going through this process. But since you
Yes,
guys are summarizing it into pretty much a checklist, if we could use it, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Larry's going to do a polish on it. Is that right, Larry?
Yeah, what I will do, Gary, is I'll clean up all the change history on it because it's really messy in the view it's in right now. So I'll accept all the changes, get rid of all the gunk. And then if you're okay with it, I'll just email it over to Karina, and then I'll provide you a copy as well for record copy of for the minutes.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Next on the agenda is Larry's still green.
Larry, can you stop sharing your screen?
Oops, sorry. Yes, I will.
All right, we're back. Okay, at our last meeting, Tom presented a draft for a 2020 report of the committee's activities. The bylaws state that an annual report does need to be done, and it lists May as a target date. We should be able to get this done before then. Now, I'm relying on Morris, Kathy, Tom. You were here early in 2020, so your input is going to drive most of this. As I see it today, I don't see anything wrong with it, but is there anything that needs to be added?
And which report is this?
Is
sorry.
Tom still with us? Yes, there he is. Tom presented a draft for Finance and Planning Committee activities and accomplishments for 2020.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, it's been several days, and we have not said anything about that since the. So what I'll say today, if you don't have additional information, then I'll ask, since Tom has it in, well, is it in Word? I forgot.
I can make it in Word.
Would
I
you-
want to say a few things about what I sent out. That it was primarily for our benefit, not for, communication with the board. The first third of it focuses on what I believe just cut and dried accomplishments. There's a little section that said, we as a committee experienced some, volatility in our staff. If we're going to forward something like this to the board, my personal feeling is I don't think that's appropriate. That's just really for our consumption. The last part was looking forward to 2021. That does not seem to be what we're wanting to do, so I would drop that part. So with respect to the accomplishments of 2020, the only feedback I got was from John. He said he looked at it, he didn't have anything to add. Not to put, undue pressure on Kathy, who is our faithful secretary, but, she could go back and look at the minutes and see if there's anything worth adding or not. I don't know if she's done that or not. Kathy, do you have any comments?
Well, we're having computer issues. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
We're having computer issues here, so we missed the first half of the meeting. I'll wait for the recording, but I can certainly go back and see what was there.
Shut it off to the left. Right, I'm sorry.
Someone,
Got it? Thank you. I'm
I
sorry.
think it's a,
That was
Patience, bud.
it's a way of calling it.
So anyway, what I would plan to do is cut the first third, the part that says accomplishments, and then send it to you, Gary, and then you usually put it in a, more appropriate format to forward to the board. I think that's what you had in mind.
yes, yes,
Okay.
eventually, but again, I have to say, you guys were here.
Yeah.
In the first part of the year, and I was not.
Right.
But I mean, ultimately, I think the three of us are pretty comfortable that what you see is, very close to everything that we did. If Kathy wants to do one last check, that's fine.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll give it my best
I think
shot.
we're pretty comfortable that it's a reasonable reflection of our activities from last year.
Okay. Sounds great. I will look forward to receiving that. We had a third item on the agenda, but there's no need to go into that. The board is going to present us with a charter. What, is there any new business someone has thought about? Comments from members?
I have one question. Dick mentioned that there were several people serving on both the Finance and Planning Committee and the task force. I've heard that under the table. Is there anything official, or should I just continue working with my under the table information?
That's a question for Dick. Is Dick still with us?
His picture is, he's
Okay.
not moving.
Gary, this is Jeff. Dick looks like he's not moving anymore on there, so I don't know if we lost him or not. Just for knowledge, the task force names are supposed to come out hopefully early next week from the board, so that will be clear on who are the members as far as that goes. So that'll make that a little bit easier for everybody, I think. And I think that a conversation that we had as far as deconflicting what the task force is doing and the Finance and Planning Committee is doing is a good one. And there's intent to have a meeting next week between the committee chairs and the task force to do that deconfliction and establish a collaborative relationship between the committees and the task force to get after the specifics that the board is looking for regarding revenue requirements, and analysis of that, and how to approach the community this fall. So I think that that's kind of where we are right now. Hopefully, all things being equal and without any further disruptions, I would expect to see names, like I said, early next week, and more detailed coordination and collaboration, roles, responsibilities, et cetera, discussed with each of the committee chairs, so that can then trickle down to all the members, and everybody will then, I think, be able to kind of move forward. There's probably still some areas as we move forward that will be overlap, and the importance will be is just coordination and collaboration to kind of get to what Dick was talking about there, as far as his discussion there. A lot of that leveraging, I think, what the Finance and Planning Committee has done in the past and can lead to what they're going to do in the future. I'll copy.
All right.
Is Dick is he representing the task force too as the board member?
No, I think Pam Avila is going to do that.
Pam and Tucker.
Okay. Other members' comments? Well, I think we're all anxious to get started on this project. We believe we know what's coming, but we still need to see it. And then we'll jump in and start asking questions. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
May I? I have a quick question here before you adjourn, Larry. You're going to be sending in a clarification on your spreadsheet to Karina. I'm wondering if you would like to send me some major points of that are simplified and easy to read that you'd like to put in the paper. Is that something that you would like to do?
I can try.
Okay.
Let me think about that a little bit, if you don't mind. Actually, what I was sending back to the folks here, and just want to let you know it's in your email already, is there was a spreadsheet and then there was a Word file, which was essentially the questions that we were going to be asking the folks as they sat down for the review process. That's what I sent back. Let me take a look at that. And see. I'll definitely need to vet it through, since it's going to end up in the paper. Clearly, it needs to get vetted through Dick and make sure that the board is comfortable with it. But I'll certainly take that action.
Certainly understand
Also,
that.
Also, Larry, we do not want that. Will serve no purpose to publish that before the employees have had a chance to.
Either that or just a simple statement that the Financial and Planning Committee are presenting 1, 2, 3 items to the board for discussion, and just a very simple explanation of each one of them. Because to put in what I see in your spreadsheet is more complicated than I think what they would want to read anyway. So think about it and let me know, okay?
I can certainly do that, Sandy, and like I said, I'll clear it. I have to clear it through Gary. I have to clear it through Dick.
No problem.
Have to run the traps, but that's okay. I'll take a shot at it, and then folks can adjust as they see fit.
I just want to keep the readers involved and the residents involved in how hard all these committees work and how hard everybody is working with the POA and the staff. It's a lot of work. Thank you very much.
Right for the point. What's that? Writer for the police. Gotcha.
So, okay, were there more comments? If not, I think I heard a motion to adjourn. Did I hear a second?
Morris did second earlier.
Okay, all right. All in favor?
Second.
All in favor? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Okay.